everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still. And now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything, everything's a miracle. Wine from water, it's not so small, but an even better magic trick is anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's sacred hand me down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face to say it's not a testament, and that it would be hard to say. See another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head, remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Good morning. I've just enjoyed so many minutes of quiet reflection with music. I hope you have too. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, a congregation of love, hope, and justice, inspiring people to take on the challenges of a changing world. My name is Maura Rouse, and I am one of your worship associates this morning. Speaking of a changing world, our minister is on sabbatical for 16 weeks, beginning now. So I'm also a member of the sabbatical task force that's filling the gap and covering many responsibilities in the congregation in conjunction with the Board of Management and other committees and entities that work here all the time to have you here now. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, live, learn, and worship on the sea's ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people, who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We offer a special welcome to those of you who are new or visiting with us for the first time this morning. We're delighted that you're here. We hope that you will join us in Fellowship Hall following the service for refreshments and conversation. If you have questions or want more information about this service or any of the ministries or programs of this congregation, please do not hesitate to ask. We invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. These cards can be placed in the offering plate or given to one of the ushers or greeters this morning if you would like future communications with our congregation. For those of you joining us online this morning, we offer you a special welcome. And for safety purposes, please put your name in the video feed so that we know you. Please take a moment to assign one of the attendance clipboards that are going to begin circulating now. These are not obligatory, but you can sign in and be counted as part of the attendance at today's service. During the service, we will offer an opportunity to share a brief personal joy or sorrow. If you would like yours to be read, you can print it on an index card, also found in your pews, and drop it in the collection plate when that comes around. These cards will also be posted outside the minister's office to be shared with other members of our congregation. For those of you online, you can place a joy or sorrow in the chat, preceded by "please read," and it will be read for you during this time. In the foyer are large print orders of service and listening devices for anybody who might find their assistance beneficial. One of the ushers can assist you with that. I invite you also at this moment to turn your technology to worship mode. Today, we are thrilled to have with us somebody who grew up in our own congregation. Her biography is on the back of your order of service. Reverend Jen Innes is currently serving a UU church in Peoria, Illinois, and is here with us this morning. So glad that you are here, and hope you enjoy today's service.
From the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Every little thing that breaks your heart is welcome here. We'll make space for it, give it its due time, and praise for the wanting it represents, the longing for something more, some healing hope that remains not yet. We promise no magic, well, maybe a little fairy dust, but no magic. No making it all better, but offer only this circle of trust, this human community that remembers, though imperfectly, that sings and prays, sometimes awkwardly, this gathering that loves, though not yet enough. We're still practicing, after all, still in need of help, still learning, still becoming partners, still becoming able to receive all this beauty and all these gifts we each bring. So come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1000, Morning Has Come. Upon We have a small change in the order of service. We'll not be doing the change for change collection, but I will just offer a note of appreciation for how much I know this congregation does for the good works into the world, so thank you. So let me turn to the story, which is The Empty Pot, and it's adapted from a book by Demi and adapted by one of my education colleagues in Bloomington, Illinois, Tarina Carter. And so it begins. In a time that was and was not, a kingdom with a ruler was there who was really, really, really ready to retire. This ruler, named Sam, was kind and just and was making sure that everyone in the kingdom was treated fairly and all worked together to be sure that everyone had what they needed to live a good life. And that work was hard work. And Sam was really, really ready to what? Retire. Thank you. And turn the job over to someone else. Now, there were 3 people in the running for the job, and all were evenly matched in every way. And Sam wasn't sure what to do, how to pick, how to choose, until an idea. Now, Sam gathered all 3 together and announced, "Before each of you is a pot full of the best soil from our lands. I'm giving you each a bag of seeds, and I ask that you do what you can to make them grow. And then return in 1 year. No, 6 months, because I'm really, really ready to retire." Yes. So return in 6 months with your pots, and I will choose one of you as my successor to rule the kingdom. So each person gathered up their pot, their bags of seeds, returned to their homes, and each buried the seeds in the pot, watered the soil, put the pot in warm sun. One person turned their pot every day, so every side would get the sunshine, because some people say making sure that the pot is evenly in the sun helps plants grow. One person sang to their seeds, because some people say that singing and talking to plants helps them grow. And one person put worm tea on the seeds, because some people say that putting worm tea on the soil also helps plants grow. And so day by day and week by week and month by month, time passed until it had been 6 months. And the 3 each put their pot in a cart, returned to the ruler named Sam, who was really, really ready to what? Retire. Yes. And the first person presented a pot filled with the most beautiful lemon tree. And Sam leaned in and breathed in to smell the deep citrusy tang of the ripe lemons. The second person returned with a pot filled with beautiful flowers: purple larkspur, orange butterfly weed, yellow coreopsis. Sam could see the bees buzzing from colorful flower to flower. And then the third person presented their pot, and it was filled with soil and nothing else. And Sam looked at the soil and looked at the person standing behind the, empty pot. And the person who was so embarrassed and disappointed and just couldn't look up from the floor. And Sam slowly smiled. And in front of this person with the empty pot, Sam said, "This is the person who will take over as ruler of the kingdom." And the person with the lemon said, what? And the person with the flowers said, I must have misheard you over the bees of my beautiful flowers. And even the person with the empty pot looked up and said, really? I mean, I tried and tried to make the seeds grow, but nothing happened. Now Sam the ruler said, when I gave the seeds to you, I did not tell you that it wasn't possible to grow anything from these seeds. So I wonder how the two of you made the impossible possible. The plants in the pots brought by you were not actually from the seeds I had given you. Only one of you was true and honest to yourself despite great temptation. And Sam, who was really, really ready to what? Retire. He retired. And this new ruler took over. And the first official duty of the new ruler was to put both of the other candidates, the one with the lemon tree and the one with the pot of overflowing flowers, in charge of the kingdom's gardens. So I wonder, and I hope you'll wonder with me for this week and maybe for this new year to come, about when you might be tempted to not be true to yourself. I wonder what might help resist that temptation. I know I want to let folks know that we don't have a formal education program today for the children, so we'll not be singing the sending song, but I want to invite all ages to remain with us for the service today, because now we have a beautiful reading, if I may say, from Elandria Williams, who was someone who was a powerful and wonderful voice in their community in Tennessee and in Unitarian Universalism. Elandria was the co-moderator of our Unitarian Universalist Association from 2017 to 2020. And E was a joyful and powerful advocate for human rights who died too young and too soon in 2020. And this is what E has to say. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. Divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind or for the support you give others, not for what you give at all. We are worthy and whole just because in this great turning, in this great moment, in this radical readjustment and alignment, we are not disposable. We are needed. We are the very people that have withstood everything that has been thrown at us as a people. And as Maya Angelou would say, still I rise. We arise from the pain, we arise from the grief, we arise from the limits people place on us and the limits we place on ourselves. We rise to be the children and the ancestors. We rise to be our true selves in relationship to families and communities, recognizing our liberating and whole selves, honoring them and others as we strive for abundant communities, abundant lives, abundant relationships, and abundant values and cultural manifestations. We are worthiness personified. I and you and we are worthy and deserve a life where we are not always fighting for our existence. Here ends the reading. I offer a note as I begin from the wonderful musician Melanie DeMore. I think would jive well with what Elandria had to say. I'm sending you light to hold you, to heal you. I'm sending you light to hold you in love. I'm sending you light, hold you, to heal you. I'm sending you light, hold you in love. I'm sending you light, hold you, heal you. I'm sending you light, hold you in love. So for the message today, I invite you to begin with me and ponder a question. Are people doing their best? Are people in any given moment doing their best? Author and researcher Brené Brown asks this question in her book, Rising Strong: How the Ability to Reset Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. And she started this question in this book. It started her down a path. The question came up in the course of a moment in her life. Now, she had a moment when she reluctantly agreed to participate in a conference for less than her full fee and in not great conditions. Now, she does a fair amount of work for good causes, as a matter of course, in addition to charging professional rate for her work. And sometimes she will be a little bit generous too. But in this moment, she said yes, not from a positive place, but from a little bit of a sense of shame, because the organizer said, well, so you're too good to be part of our event here? And that kind of got her a little hooked, and she said yes, reluctantly. All right. And then, after saying yes, then she was informed that she would be expected to share a hotel room, because all the other presenters were sharing. And she didn't speak up for her needs in that moment, knowing that she really functions better when she has a room to herself, because she had learned from a long line of family, and well, a little bit of Texas, but a long line of family, not to be too big for her britches. So she didn't ask for what she needed. She went with the conditions. Okay. But then she arrived in her room. The roommate was already there at the hotel. So she ended up sharing a room with a woman who, well, the first impression was that this woman was putting dirty boots on the hotel furniture and didn't care whether she smeared frosting all over the hotel furniture. Yeah, right? Even though Brené Brown was like, I have a napkin, we have paper towels. Oh, it's the hotel furniture, it doesn't matter. And then the roommate proceeded to go out onto the balcony and smoke. So was smoking in a non-smoking hotel, and Brene Brown was trying to point out this politely, as one tries to be polite. And it just added up to the point where Brene was had got completely frustrated and outraged at how her roommate not only ignored basic consideration for property, but also seemed to literally blow her off with continued smoking. So the event was fine, and about 5 minutes after the event was over, Brene Brown was on her way home, and fuming, and knew enough, and so like at the airport, human beings, no human was okay. Everybody was in her way. It was a scene. And Brene knew enough that she needed to see her therapist because she couldn't let this go. And so she went to her therapist and just vented about terrible people and scofflaws and people not being respectful and so on and so forth. And the therapist did what the therapist does and listened and asked clarifying questions. And, you know, Brene was even able to articulate that she was stewing in self-righteousness and recognizing that this was a particularly difficult and important emotion in her own recovery path. But still, these people were terrible. And the therapist, after being present, asks the question, what if this other person, this hotel roommate, was doing the best they could? What if this person in the hotel, who actively smeared the frosting and actively blew smoke everywhere, what if that person was doing the best they could? Ugh, no way. Of course not. They couldn't be doing the best they could. Well, maybe. But it got her thinking. It got Brene Brown thinking that maybe the question was worth asking. And so she did. Now, I want to make a distinction here, that asking about whether somebody is doing the best they can is different than assuming good intentions. This is not that conversation. That's a different conversation. Assuming good intentions is assuming that you know the motivation behind where someone's coming from. Doing the best they can is recognizing what somebody's choice is. What are they actually doing? So Brene Brown did start to ask this question, are people doing the best they can? Informally, and then got enough information to decide to do a more formal study. And here's what she found, whether in casual conversation or in an actual study. Here's what she found. That those who responded to this question, are people doing their best? If they said yes, there was always a qualification. I don't know, I'm not sure, but, and maybe this sounds naive, but yes, I think people are doing their best. Diana, the therapist, put it this way: yes, I really do believe that most of us are doing the very best we can with the tools we have. I believe that we can grow, we can get better, but I also believe that most of us are really doing our best. Now, those who said no to this question of people doing their best were absolute. Definitely not. Absolutely not. I know I'm not so great. I know I fall short all the time. And they were, in answering that question that said no, they were unsparing towards themselves. And as a result, saying, well, why should I give anyone the benefit of the doubt? And they were judging themselves as harshly as they were judging others. And those who said no to whether people were doing their best also tended to struggle with perfectionism and their own worth. Those who said yes to the question tended to function from a place of more wholeheartedness and have a more belief in their sense of self-worth. Those who said yes tended to be coming from a place of more compassion, more generous, and have a better, stronger sense of boundary and worth and self. Nope, I'm never perfect, but I am a work in progress, and I will keep trying. In this moment, in this transition of the new year from one to the next, it seems wise to have a conversation on the relationship between generosity and integrity, between boundaries and anger, between worth and grief. And the question being, in part, how much energy do we put into judging ourselves and others? In this season, when people are singing with joy, when we're called to love and abundance, how shall we define ourselves? How shall we do so and try to live in a more generous spirit so that we may respond to the call of a larger love and a larger hope? I have mixed feelings about the empty pot story. In its original form, in the form I first heard it, it's not a story I tell. In fact, I avoid it. Because in the original version of the story, it's a king, and the king is asking their 3 children to grow from seeds that are impossible, and sets up those children for failure, as far as my interpretation of the original story is concerned. Can you imagine allowing children any window of time to wonder what will happen to them if the seeds don't grow? Like, I would never tell that story. And I so appreciate my colleague Tarina for adapting this, for finding a different way to think about it. I can't really fault the children or the candidates for leadership in the current story who find other seeds to nurture and bloom. I can't fault them for trying to find a way to make this work. I think the lemon tree might have been overselling it a bit, because that takes a whole lot longer than 6 months. And I so feel for what would have been one child or the one candidate who brought back the empty pot and confessed, like they didn't know what was going to happen. But then I consider the question about doing their best and wonder about the conditions that the king in the original story, or the leader who was really, really ready to retire, what conditions they were having to deal with, that this was the way they found to screen for the next person, that this was the choice they made. And I can appreciate that maybe each of them was doing the best they could. And I think we get to ask that of all kinds of people, not just ourselves, but all kinds of people, and maybe have that question for world leaders, for folks who continually harm others. If that's the best somebody can do, then maybe they need to be doing something else. It's not that you're not without consequences, but wondering what's the best that people can do. I think this is present for many of us as we've been navigating family and relationship and expectations around the holidays, right? What's the best that each of us can do? And I recognize Brene Brown thought about this a little bit, that in finding the people who answered yes, that people are doing their best, how much that was qualified. Well, I don't know. I might be naive. I wonder. And how it can sound like, how saying yes to or people doing their best can sound like a weakness, a giving in, a giving people a pass. But what she found when she found that yes in someone was Brene Brown was finding it that people were operating from a certain clarity and framing and choosing where they wanted to live. Brene's husband, Steve, she asked him this question in an unregulated, self-righteous moment before she fully processed with her therapist. But she asked him this question, are people doing their best? And Steve was a pediatrician who's seen people at their best and their worst. He also took about 10 minutes to respond. But his response was this. He said, I don't know. I really don't. All I know is that my life is better when I assume people are doing their best. It keeps me out of judgment and lets me focus on what is and not what could or should be. It keeps me out of judgment and lets me focus on what is and not what could or should be. And to me, where I get to with that is that I don't want to exhaust myself with resentment. I don't want to burn more energy than I have to on what's not going to happen, and rather focus on what is and not what could or should be. If we can get to that kind of reflection, it also allows for processing some of the feelings of recognizing what is, which isn't actually always great either, and can leave us with a lot of anger and grief over what's happening versus what we want to happen. Here's partially where it's important to sort out that boundary of generosity and boundaries, where we begin and where the world begins. Brene Brown talks about this in a story of a woman she interviewed who, in the response to the question of are people doing their best, this woman answered emphatically, no, people are not doing their best. And Brene asked, are you thinking about somebody specific with this? And the woman said, yes. So this woman and her sister both had trained for classical ballet, and the woman being interviewed was no longer able to dance for health reasons. But her sister was so talented and so capable, but instead chose to drink and undermine herself, and is basically all she was doing was being an exotic dancer. She was making very different choices. And this woman, in the course of the conversation with Brene Brown, was saying if she acknowledged that her sister was doing the best she could, just that question just broke her open, and she wept. Because that let her let go of being angry, but let her be open to grief. She could grieve all that was lost, already lost, in what she was hoping her sister could do. Then she could be sad and recognize what was and what wasn't. I think this tendency to judgment and saying that people are not doing their best can end up being a rigid choice, an exhausting choice, versus dealing with anger and fear about the death of something that we wanted to have happen. But that grief can help us begin to accept what is and isn't, the beginning and end of things. It can help us accept ourselves, who we are, what we can and can't determine, and answer the question of what boundaries need to be in place for me to be in my integrity and be generous. What are the boundaries that need to be in place so that I may be in my integrity and be generous? Because our best generosity is when we're giving from our strength and our self. What is the best place for us to be in where we can give? And an important part of that is knowing when we can't give. What are the limits of what we can give, such that we're not going to damage or draw down ourselves? People have had to make this kind of choice all the time and having to say no and stop. I'm sure you have, even with somebody that you love. The addict, the person who's codependent, the person who has not been any different for years. We get to decide what we can and can't give, even in a moment with deep obligation and expectation, even with wishes for a different outcome, even with sorrow for the pain that this person we have to say no to is experiencing. Knowing where our boundary is between ourselves and the world, wanting to be our most generous self in that understanding, lets us ask the question, how can I be my most generous self? To live in love as we are called to do. To live in this world and be part of the call to liberation. Our sense of truth and reality is so often tested, and it's going to be more tested in the coming months and years. The practice of knowing where we begin and end, that we might be more generous and more abundant, is now and is every day. Some of us are getting some good practice with visiting families of origin. There is no faster regression than going home. I'm just saying. And I love being with my family. They're all here. Okay. And as Alondria Williams reminds us, we are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind or the support you give others, not for what you give at all, but you are worthy and whole just because. So let us live into this sense of worth and definition and locating of self, that we might be the most generous people we can be, because this world needs us to be so. It truly does. So let us respond to that call and live in love as best we can. Amen.
We pause once again in our service for another kind of offering, one that reflects the values and principles we hold dear, that which is symbolic of our own efforts and capacities, a financial offering to continue the mission and ministries of this congregation. I invite you to participate in our offering as the plate comes before you and give as it makes you feel good. For those newest among us, please consider this service our gift to you this morning and do not feel obligated to contribute financially at this time. For those joining us online or those who wish to contribute digitally, you are welcome to participate in our offering by either texting 508-232-5331 or by visiting www.uucworcester.org/donate and following the instructions given there. At this time, the morning offering will be received.
And now I'd like to invite folks to come forward. If you have joys, sorrows to share with the congregation, and then light a candle if you wish after.
I'm happy to say that she's back home.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. This is actually mine and not online. Don's got those. I just wanted to say how happy I am to be here with Jen. We went to school at the same time. That's all.
In case you don't know, I'm Jennifer's mother. And I'm happy to be here with her, too.
So I will offer the part of what we get to do for this holiday visit with my family here is that we get to visit my dad, Chuck Innes, and he is declining in hospice. He moved into hospice care just before Thanksgiving. And we are very fortunate to be able to visit with him, and he is happy to see us, and he enjoys a good Coca-Cola whenever he can get one, because we always bring him one. And how much it is also a joy to still talk with him about things and kind of get some of the deeper stories in that big brain of his. If you know my father, you know he has a big brain. And also to have the chance to be part of his care and part of his last chapter of life.
Hello, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Dawn Dowd. I have the honor of sharing online joys and sorrows from our online community. Want to share, Linda Morse had shared as Reverend was speaking. I always look forward to the annual visit and timely words of Reverend Jennifer Innes. I wish I could be with everyone.
So I'll offer a joy, because it's before the joy happens, which is a good time to share, which is that coming up in March, this year, March 19th, in fact, will be the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of my ordination. Here. And I so appreciate the moment and the chance to just physically remember that moment and that celebration of the congregation that had gathered to send me off into ministry. So there's the joy too. Will you please join me for the litany of response as printed in the order of service? In Love by Charles Thomas. I will offer the phrases if you would respond with "Let us love." Rooting ourselves in love as the source of all we are. Acknowledging every person and all of nature as unique, important, and wanted. Learning that we are not whole until all beings are whole. Sharing and relating with one another as each feels comfortable. Working to be anti-racist and opposing every oppression. Drawing nearer to beloved community on this our one planet. Please rise in body and spirit for our closing hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Hear the We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And offer the benediction from the Reverend Mark Mosher de Wolf, one of our late colleagues, one of our most excellent ministers who passed during the AIDS crisis. And he asks, "With what benediction shall I leave you?" And he responds, "In your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into it every moment. May you live at peace with your world and peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your every day." Our worship is ended. Let our service and the new year begin.
Please join me in thanking Reverend Innes for our service this morning. Does anybody have any quick announcements?
This Friday, game night here, 6 to 8:30. There's a little registration code at the board that says happenings at UUCW. It's got a little dinosaur on it if you want to do the QR code. Otherwise, it will be in the message so that you can sign up. Just so we know how many chairs and tables we need. And if you want pizza, it's $5. Please come.
I'm the flower lady. If anybody would like to take any of these poinsettias home today, you're welcome to. And we did set up for a coffee hour, so you're welcome to come to coffee hour that way after the service.
We have a table at the Martin Luther King Community Breakfast 3 weeks from tomorrow, Monday morning, January 20th. Starts at 8 in the morning. There's breakfast, there's speakers, there's singing. We shall overcome altogether 700 people in a big room at Assumption College University. Hope to have you sign up.
Go ahead and have a great day, everybody.